Welcome to Stormwatch by Grey Noise Intelligence. Each week, we drop the latest info on what's happening at Grey Noise and Census, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and we'll eventually again drop the occasional conspiracy theory. We really need to do that, Kimber. Today, we have an extra special crunchy guest on the pod, Erick Galinkin. We're going to introduce Erick a bit more later, but he's going to share how he's helping make AI safer for all of us to use and to build stuff with. And we're going to be keeping the AI theme for our entire Cyberside chat as we review some recent AI-enabled attacks, or were they, and poke at some recent commentary making some interesting assertions about using AI in cyber defense. And we're going to briefly take a look at what appears to be another XZ-style attack attempt at the OpenJS Foundation and why that was a little scary to see. And we also cover our usual tool time, tags, and Kev roundup segment. So it's going to be a pretty good day. And discussing all this is me, Bob Brutus, and my co-host, Kimber. Good morning, Kimber. And before I actually start asking questions, I got to get the background. I've already told the crew this, but if you hear dance queen going on in the background, Alba has been ushered into the Library of Congress Preservation Program along with about 25 other things, and I had no choice but to pay homage to them with this. So there we go.
We care about history here.
Yeah, we do. So, Kimber, how's it going?
It's good. It's Tuesday.
Has spring finally merged?
Yesterday was like 50 degrees.
Nice.
I went on a wonderful hike over the weekend because it was actually nice, and I'm feeling like it might be spring today. It might be.
Very cool. Well, in spring, like the plants and the flowers and everything bloom and grow, right? So, if you could talk and communicate with any species of plant, what would it be and what would you ask?
The beautiful pothos. The pothos plant.
You actually have that with you.
I do, because this plant has been my bestie for like the past living in an apartment. She's beautiful. She's strong. Her heritage is IKEA. I got her from IKEA.
Nice.
And yeah, she's growing. So I think that we have like a telecommunication thing going on.
Like you already talked to it?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because I've always killed plants really fast, and for some reason, IKEA girl is like thriving. So I think we're connected.
So, like, if you could ask it a deeper question, then what would that deeper question be?
Oh, if I could ask, like, for all of the plant knowledge of the universe, I would definitely be asking that plant, like, what the future holds. Like, how many children am I going to have? Like, that kind of stuff. How long am I going to live? Like, when am I going to die?
Wow, I don't know if I want to know that. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know when you die or if I die, because I don't want either one of us to do that. Which I know is inevitable.
Something a pothos plant would know.
Probably.
Okay.
Very cool. Emily, good day.
Hello. Good day.
Did it get? I heard it got warm, like in the southern regions, like 80s in the southern regions. Is that true?
It is true. You are correct.
It's like not even the end of April.
No, I went for a run this morning and it was really humid. I was like, oh, this is back.
Ew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good for plants though. I was really hoping you would say humid, because that was my segue to that. And same question to you. If you could comms with any plant species, which one and what would you ask?
So I don't have my real one sitting here with me, but I do have this little snow globe. I would go with a cactus, because I find them just really fascinating and beautiful and kind of hardy. And I just sort of want to know, like, how are you so resilient, little cactus or big cactus? Like, teach me your ways. I need to learn that kind of resilience. I want to know more.
I like that.
Yeah.
Grow spines. Be prickly.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Erick, thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
I'm delighted to be here, Bob.
I miss having conversations with you every day back at the old ranch, so it's great having you on. And I have the same question for you. You are required as a guest to answer them too. If the same thing, plant species, what do you want to talk about?
So I don't know that I would be able to find out the mysteries of the universe because I didn't pick a pothos plant. But
sad.
I've got The durian tree is my answer. And I have
Oh,
2 reasons for the durian tree. First is I don't want to pick something too common because that's a lot of ambient noise. I don't want like grass. Terrible. Everywhere. Don't want to hear that. Dandelions, no thank you. But durian tree, like, do you know that your fruit's stinky? Do you know that? Like, why are you the way that you are? Like,
Do you think like the durian, does it have self-awareness? Like, does it know?
Well, I mean, if the pothos plant can tell you when you're going to die, I'm going to assume that the durian tree
Fair.
has a modicum of self-awareness.
Fair. I feel like it's probably very proud of how stinky it is.
Yeah, and I guess that's my question is like, you don't have any olfactory senses, so like, do you know that your fruit stinks?
Does it watch the responses of people around it and suddenly like, it knows?
People fear me.
Do you know that?
ooh.
But also, like, people still eat durian. It's apparently delicious to people who have that gene. I got the one where I don't have the soap thing for cilantro, but I got the one where durian doesn't taste or smell good. But I guess some people don't have the same experience. So yeah, I want to know, like, durian, do you know? Do you know what the perception of your fruit is? Since you have no eyes or ears or smell.
That we know of.
Right? Yeah. Those would be my questions for the durian tree. Also, again, rare enough. I'm not going to encounter a durian tree in the wild. It's just like, hey man, like, how's it going? Like, I don't want that.
I don't even know where you would find them on the planet.
China.
Yeah.
Probably the West Coast too, I imagine. This is a question that we could Google or...
I feel like there are ways we could find out. Perhaps AI could tell us in a bit of foreshadowing.
You could try Bing search.
No, not all right. That's out. All right.
We only in this family.
Overwatch. What's your answer? You're required to. Redwood tree, old and wise. Not sure what to ask it. Probably some kind of meaning of life question. Fair.
Wow.
Mine is a little similar, but it's specifically the bristlecone pine species. They actually have trees on the planet right now that are 4,800 years old. And since I kind of also have a belief that all plants kind of talk to each other, I could ask this thing, what the heck, for the past 4,800 years? Like, why all this stuff? What's this? What?
You just walk up to the tree and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, just it. What's going on? Tell me, because like it knows that if for 4,800 years of knowledge, I would love to tap into just figure out why things happen the way they happen, and it knows why because it was there.
Yeah. Fungi do talk to each other.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Fully about to info dump on how aspen tree groves are interconnected. They've proven this. It's much like a mycelium network.
What is it?
Right.
Pando? Is that the thing that's interconnected? I feel like there's a thing that I can't remember, but yeah, the whole the network that they have, like, it's fascinating.
Well, welcome to Plantcast, brought to you by I
mean, we have found out that we can indeed start a botany podcast after this episode, and we promise that we're going to get into AI. Right now, before we do that, though, just thank you for all of the podcast listeners and on-demand listeners. Mash all the buttons, like, subscribe. No one's writing any reviews. Please do that. It does actually help. So if we could just make them mean if you want to. Like, I'm mean, you can be mean. It's great. And you already saw Erick in person, so we're gonna get this slide down because I just want to talk to Erick. You are now. I looked at your title, AI security researcher. That does not do what you do justice. I'm sorry, my friend. So if you could please talk to the folks about what you do at NVIDIA, like what your position is, and then I also want to talk about some of your open source projects that you've got going on too.
Yeah, definitely. So for those of you who have never heard of me, which is totally reasonable. I come from a cybersecurity background. I've been in cybersecurity longer than I care to admit, and basically got into AI in the cybersecurity side, and now I've kind of started doing security of AI, for want of a better title. So the two big open source projects I work on are Nemo Guardrails and Garak, which are focused on Nemo Guardrails is specifically around like dialogue management for large language models. So making sure that large language models kind of say the things you hope that they say. Jailbreak detection, hallucination detection, fact checking. Maybe like if you're a car dealership with a chatbot, maybe you write some topical rails that say, don't talk about things that aren't scheduling service at this dealership, right? And then Garak is, again, for want of a better analogy, Metasploit for large language models. So we collect a bunch of known attacks against large language models and put them into this open source framework, this open source tool. And it can be used as a command line tool. It can be used as a library. It's pretty flexible. And I spend a lot of my time working on that. But I also do a lot of research in AI security. So specifically around how do we detect attempts to do bad things to large language models, and then also coming up with new ways to do bad things to large language models. And as those get more integrated into systems that can actually do things, how do we make large language models do bad things to your system because you gave them the ability to run commands? So yeah, they kind of go hand in hand.
See, I'm kind of bummed already though, because like there's the car, like the guy, I also use the car dealership thing, the chatbots as an example, and
Mhm.
like if you're wildly successful with this, like how are the medium bloggers going to abuse car chatbots to like write their horrible posts that they do?
Well, there will always be people uh, deploying things in a way that isn't ideal. I think that you and I, Kimber and Emily, have been around long enough to know no matter how much you tell people the right thing to do and show them how and give them literally free tools to do the right thing, uh, life finds a way.
It
So
really does.
oh yeah, especially with this, I want both Emily and Kimber to be able to ask questions too, but I have one burning question. What is it like to play in like the third biggest public company's playground with like literally the most advanced technology that exists right now for doing this kind of work? It's got to be just like a little bit of heaven on earth right now.
Um, yes, but
Okay.
so it's wonderful because I've worked right, like cybersecurity. We are always resource constrained. It's always like it's great that you want to do that thing, but you have a $0 budget and it has to run on your laptop. Uh, those are the rules. And by the way, you have 2 weeks to work on it because we have other things to do. Uh, you know, so that is very nice, but in some ways, like that freedom can be overwhelming because there is just so much potential that it's hard to nail down what the right thing to do is, right? Like, what is the next thing I should work on? Should I work on this, you know, vaguely uninteresting feature that will improve quality of life for people? Or should I launch a big 6-month long research project that may or may not yield any fruit? So far, I've just been trying to split the difference, and that's been working okay. So it's a lot of fun, but it can be overwhelming because yeah, you basically have no functional limits on computation.
I
So
guess that's
jealous.
like a good lead in for my question is how much do you think what you're doing, what you're researching is going to accelerate cybersecurity just in general? Like, do you think it'll kind of force people to do some leveling up, or that's one of the big concerns that I've heard from people in general is just like the accelerationism of AI in particular, and how people are afraid that they're not going to be able to keep up.
So I have a nuanced and diplomatic answer to this question, which is that it depends, right? So it depends on what the adoption of artificial intelligence is, right? Like the things that I'm working on are specifically focused around large language models. We've been using artificial intelligence in spam detection, in anomaly detection, in network traffic detection for, I don't know, ever. Uh, large language models are a very particular tool in technology. I think there are pretty reasonable limits around what that technology is capable of. And since the tools that I'm focused on are specifically on the large language model side of things, it's really going to depend on what that adoption looks like in the cybersecurity world. Now, the tools that I'm working on, the goal is to make it so that people don't have to learn a bunch of new stuff, right? It's like, hey, write this YAML config. You know how to write YAML configs. Sorry, Bob. YAML configs. You know how to do that. So just write one that tells the language model what it's allowed to do and not allowed to do. You know how to run Metasploit. Like, run this Metasploit against your AI system, right? Because Metasploit doesn't care about prompt injections. Maybe they do. I should open a PR. See how it goes. But it really, like, my goal is to make it so that you don't have to go on archive every morning and read papers. Like, I'll do that for you, and then all you have to do is run your stuff, so that you don't have to worry about it, right? But again, it depends on what that adoption is. I don't think that AI is going to outpace anything. I think that is a line being pushed by people who want to sell you AI, like me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it does just kind of depend on like what the industry adopts as a whole, because we could have said the same thing about, like, I'm sure there was a thought when firewalls came out that like this would solve everything. So people adopted it really fast.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing, is like Snort didn't stop all attacks via network vectors. It stops a lot of them. It's really good. It's a useful tool, but it's not foolproof.
So kind of along those lines, I think a lot of times, particularly when there are lines of research that kind of emerge from the academic world, there's always this sort of criticism from industry of like, well, this isn't real yet. This is all very theoretical. What's your take on how things are starting to cross over, and sort of like what is the actual real tangible threat to organizations like today? And what is that going to look like in, I don't know, say 5 years from now?
So I think the good news is that, and again, this is specifically around large language models, right? There are AI systems that are in charge of very, very sensitive things, and hopefully nobody's giving you API access to those, please. I hope. Probably. I hope. But right now, a lot of these language models are being used for like pretty mundane tasks, right? They're being used for an HR chatbot, or to schedule a haircut, or customer service, whatever, right? Like things that are generally fairly low risk. I think that if we see more adoption in sensitive spaces where that type of stuff starts to matter, where being able to do indirect prompt injection that poisons a response or dumps sensitive information back to somebody who's just like put a website on the internet with good SEO, those sorts of things can become threat vectors. And so the good news is that the academic world and industry are thinking about this early enough that we can actually kind of remain abreast of the threat instead of ignoring it for 15 years and hoping for the best. I think we're learning a lot of those lessons, and I think a lot of good people are involved in the conversations around how we start to catalog these things and get information out. But to answer your question more directly, the threat today is not very interesting. It's not very exciting, right? It's like make your language model call you something rude. I'm sorry you did that to yourself. As soon as we start giving this thing the ability to read from a database or execute code or visit websites, we run a lot more risk of there being second order effects that could have real security impacts.
Before we get into the cyber questions and topics we're going to cover on the A side, this is an interesting question by Secure Girl. Thank you. And are there any gaping holes in AI cyber right now? And maybe you need to like shrink that into like maybe one of the many gaping holes that are probably in there right now.
I think the hole that is most gaping in AI cyber is that a lot of these AI applications are being deployed with very little uh, knowledge of basic application security, right? So a lot of the vulnerabilities that we see are just like good old fashioned AppSec vulns. They are, uh, you know, like not rate limiting APIs. They're caching information, right, globally, caching information for all users in a common cache, where you can then get collisions where you're returning information to users who maybe shouldn't have access to that cache, right? They are giving a single role to read every item in a database without doing any user RBAC, right? Like not doing role-based access controls for specific users, not passing that user authentication through, and just saying, okay, application, you can read everything. It's like, well, baby, now every user can read everything. Are you okay putting that database on the internet where everybody can read everything? Most of the time, the answer is no. So I think that's really the biggest hole in the AI cybersecurity space right now is that um, we are moving too fast and breaking too many things and not being, cognizant of just AppSec practices that we know and love already.
And we're going to talk more about the AppSec practices too. So I'm going to break into some of just the cyber like tangents to this. I'm going to blow through some of these because we're going to have a little chat about them. So one was a recent post from LastPass. This was a good post from LastPass, unlike the "we've been hacked again" post that they tend to do, which is they had and I'll just kind of read it. Someone used deepfake technology to try to do a really good spear phishing campaign against someone at LastPass. And the TLDR of the whole thing is it didn't work because the person recognized the telltale signs of the phishing attack. So just because AI was in there and they mentioned it didn't actually have an effect. There was also another the health sector cybersecurity coordination center. They put out a thing about like phishing and social engineering as well too. It mentioned AI, which is one reason why we're bringing it up here. Although it mentions AI and basically says, yeah, well, this wasn't used in any of the things that we're talking about, but it could be. So watch out for that. So like that's also in there, which is always fun to just create a boogeyman in the thing. And if you go to this I don't actually recommend you go to the Fortune article, but it's up there, so go for it. It's kind of vapid and shallow, but it's the president of Checkpoint, basically saying like you need to level up all of your like AI is bad, big bad. It's being used and will be used in attacks, and you have to AIify your entire security stack. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind. Which can only mean that Checkpoint probably has a bunch of AI tools. And the joint cybersecurity information distribution for I think was this Monday. I think this was Monday they did this. So yet another good helpful publication across all of the Five Eyes. I think it's all the Five Eyes, but like I care more about CISA than the rest of them. Well, maybe the NCSC and UK too. And good practical advice on exactly what Eric was just talking about: software development and deployment stuff that pretty much works everywhere, including in the AI domain. So I'm going to bring this down. And I know we've already talked about AI on a previous episode, but with Eric here, we can add some more context to these things. So you started off with, and that we will a riff from what Secure Girl started with. So that's probably the biggest problem right now in AI security. Like it's not that criminals have access to these tools and they're using them for whatever, and like they're the most prevalent use of attack. Again, the people need to just people building these systems, like who are at startups or whatever that are doing AI stuff, or internal companies that are that are using these things. They just have to go back to like cybersecurity 101 for app development practices and just follow those. And it won't matter as much what else is happening in the AI space because folks like you are actually you are helping that on the back end of these things. Is that right?
Mostly, I think that's
Okay.
mostly right. I think that there's two issues at play, and I think we need to be careful not to conflate them, which is the offensive attacks against AI systems, right? Which I think you hit the nail on the head, and then that malicious use, right? Like malicious actors leveraging AI systems to do bad things. And for the most part, it hasn't been the um, thing that some people were scared of, which is that like we're never going to be able to detect malware again because every piece of malware is now going to be custom written and generated by whatever ML model, and it's going to be perfect. I think most of those concerns were by people who have never written AV signatures before, because like that imp hash is probably the same as the 8,000 ransomware samples you can download off of GitHub. Like there's plenty of source code out there. But where we do see it is that social engineering side, right? And like I think the LastPass is actually a really great example of why maybe we shouldn't panic too hard about the deepfake stuff, because it can be used and it is being used, right? Um, but like just good user training still detects and mitigates that type of stuff, right? Like you can send me a deepfake Bob Rudis, and that doesn't mean that I'm going to send him my checking account number. Like, no, I'm going to text it to his actual phone number, right? Like that's easy. Uh, all of those sorts of things are really where it starts to come into play. So I think that there are those two things, and they are separate, right? Yeah.
I think like that's a really good way to contextualize it for me actually, is that AI isn't necessarily creating anything new here. Even if you go to ChatGPT or any of these services that are online and ask them to like, oh, I want to exploit so and so CVE, like it's not going to come up with anything new necessarily. And even if you're using it for social engineering, like the tactics are all still the same. Like nothing has really changed in the defender side of stuff in order to deal with this new threat, quote unquote. But
Yeah, that's something that I like. So when ChatGPT became widely available, when all these things kind of came out onto the market, and there was this big panic around, well, now phishing is going to be so much more effective. And it just kind of blew my mind a little bit because it sort of discounts all of these other layers of defense that are or should be in place. Like if you think about your email security stack, I think user awareness and training is kind of fundamentally broken, but that's a different conversation. But like you've kind of taught people like, hey, here's some things to look out for. You have your secure email gateway, you have your filters, you have all these things. Like unless the tactics themselves change, just having better language alone, like I don't think, or better, like more convincing, I don't think is actually going to make a measurable difference. And I'm not sure that it has. I would love to see data on this. If someone knows where that, like I don't know exactly where that would be, preferably not from a vendor who does like email security. But I think it's been really overblown in a lot of ways. And we're forgetting about all these things that are still in place. They didn't go away because ChatGPT became, generally available.
Yeah, and I think when you look at like the things that the email security vendors have put out, right, is there is increased volume since ChatGPT became widely available. Like whether or not that is in line with trends preceding, because like spam and phishing go up every year anyway. I don't know if that's like above and beyond what we would expect, right? But I guess, with the probability of failure to detect, maybe there are some more things getting through. But at the end of the day, like that is why you are scanning the attachments of emails, right? It's not just about the better language getting through your secure email gateway, because now it's not looking for a space before a period. Uh, right? It's much more complex than that. It should, or at least it should be. Hopefully, your security stack is more than just an email security gateway. Otherwise, like you've got bigger problems than AI. And yeah.
Well, that kind of leads or like segues into the discussion around the recent CISA advisory around, securing your AI systems, right? I can't remember the exact title of it. But the thing that we kind of touched on is, they're just like good development practices primarily. And one thing that stuck out to me after looking at a couple of these for other industries, there was one recently, or in the recent past, around water and wastewater security. Again, it's very standard security hygiene stuff. And that's not to say that CISA is doing a poor job with these advisories. It's more kind of a pattern in noticing, well, wait a minute, why do we still have these problems that cut across all of these different domains and disciplines that we're having to like continue to double down on? Please don't reuse passwords. Please don't put sensitive things on the internet. Please, like, that to me speaks to a much larger problem.
The advice is just gonna always be like, hey, you know that thing that you're already doing? Just like do it a little better. Just like get a little better at it, because like it's always going to be the same. Like for phishing, no matter how large scale or how fast or how adaptive like AI can help make like these social engineering attacks, which is effectively what they are, like the remedy is always going to be the same, which is you need to have the processes in place that prevent wire transfers or something along those lines, right?
I'm going to put up Justin, who's also almost like a member of the show, and we've talked about this a lot, like in various forums outside of the pod and other things. But AI does lower the barrier to larger scale attacks, so that like it basically lets morons do stuff that they might not have been able to do before. But, like, I'm gonna argue that, like, ransomware as a service lowered the barrier for anyone to do like, almost anyone to do ransomware. Like, there have been a number of developments in, like, the criminal cyber area that they've made it a lot easier for people that, like, that have no idea what they're doing to do those things, even beyond, like, the script kiddie stuff that Kimber and I always laugh at people about, 'cause that we see just way too many script kiddies in our data. But anyway, so I don't know if I buy the argument that AI is doing any worse than what the criminals were already doing and leveling up the abilities of the junior moron criminals that are out there. Like, do you see this as being a force multiplier for criminals, or is this just yet another tool that people are using and it's no different than that?
I mean, can't it be both? Right? Like it can have some marginal improvement on their ability to scale an attack and just be like a tool that offers a marginal improvement, right? Just like, I mean, 10 years ago, criminals were buying phishing templates. And so you would, get 100 different phishing templates that were in, well written, whatever the target language was. Um, and then, plug and play with your 100 templates and hit your, 200 or 300 victims, just sending, one or two of each of the templates off to people, right? I mean, that's what they were doing. And now it's a little bit more automatable. So I don't know that it's necessarily a force multiplier, but it's probably easier. Which like is not ideal, but I guess I don't know that that is world ending, right? Because all of those same security, it's not a fundamentally new type of attack, right? It's not fundamentally shifting the attack landscape. Like we've been dealing with phishing emails forever, right? I would say forever. I would say since the beginning of email, there have been phishing emails. Uh, you know,
That's such an excellent like framing. I love the way you explain that. If like this isn't a fundamentally new type of attack, it's the same thing. It's just like a different flavor almost. And I think that's sort of what it feels like people forget when we sort of get sucked into this. Oh no, it's going to cause chaos and widespread panic, and oh no, like we're never going to be able to win. Blue team is doomed. Like, but wait a minute, like exactly what you just said. We've been dealing with these forever. Like they're going to evolve, but it's not a fundamentally new thing that we've never seen before.
Yeah,
we know
I
what
guess
to do.
like people, there's this thought that I'm seeing like emerge, like even in this discussion in particular, of AI as like an offensive tool is something to like make people faster, scalable, et cetera, et cetera. But like, what are the defensive ways of using this stuff?
Yeah, I mean there are actually quite a few, right? So I mean, large language models as just a single type of AI, right? If we just put that off to the side for a moment and think about like all of the types of AI we've been using for decades for right anomaly detection, using tree-based classifiers for malware classification and analysis, using support vector machines for anomaly detection, like using expert systems to do vulnerability scanning, right? If you want to go back to like good old fashioned AI, not even like machine learning, uh, we have all of these, right? And we've been using them for a really long time. So with large language models, right, there are a handful of applications, and I think a lot of them right now are like kind of boring. It's like turning English language text into well-formatted queries for a domain-specific language to make it easier to like bang things against your sim, or query. Didn't Census have a GPT?
We do,
It
yeah.
it has a phenomenal GPT that I use every time I do a census query because I can't make census queries without it.
Same, same. Like I literally cannot use Census without using Census GPT.
My gosh,
Right.
I'm so glad it's helpful.
They're the defensive
Yeah, Aiden, you rock. Aiden, I will
Yeah.
thank you
So
every time.
good.
Yeah, seriously, Aiden, you are amazing. Appreciate it.
But like that's such a good point too, is right? Like we've had these things for years, and this is kind of maybe this is my like old lady yells at cloud kind of thing, but like it's just computational statistics. It's just machine learning. It's just like we keep now we're calling it AI, and I understand there's obviously like some differences here, but like fundamentally, like we've been doing these things on the defensive side for a long time, but we just didn't have that same terminology around them. And so I always kind of I don't know. I again, maybe I am just being a curmudgeon, but like I sort of hate the whole like, oh, it's this new brand new thing. It's like, well, some parts of it are new, but like, hold on. Like, this is how we've done a lot of things for a really long time. Like, think about your Bayesian spam filters. Think about like some of these very basic, quote unquote, boring applications that sort of paved the way for us to get where we are.
And but so with that, so why did I mean we can't get inside his head, fine, but like why did the checkpoint president make the assertion that you really need to get AI into your security program now when it very likely is at least in every halfway decent organization's security program already, just like you said, Emily, just maybe doesn't have the AI stamp on it because it's like the boring old AI and ML, not the new cool stuff or whatever the new cool stuff is. Like, why call it out? Like, is it literally just to try to get more sales in some area? Is that literally what we're doing again?
I mean, do you want us to really say it? Because, yep, I sure feel like that's exactly what it is.
Uh-oh, I
No
like
comment.
this. AI stands for attract investment. That's not untrue. All right, we have beat AI to death, and I do want to get into some of the other topics that we're doing. AI might crop up again. You never know. So briefly talking about this, just because this came out, I believe, in the last day or two, and um, it it was an interesting thing. So for folks, I'm just going to try to do a really quick like spin on this one. This is a blog post from the Open Source Security Foundation, OpenJS Foundations. It's an alert because someone tried to do the same technical scare slash I'm going to use the word bullying because I haven't heard that word used with the XZ attack directly yet. And it was bullying by like there was a lot of bullying associated with the XZ attack, but also like a lot of just like tech scaring and like cyber scaring at the same time on top of there. And I think that was a more low and slow, well done thing, and almost could have worked if it had been executed a little slower over maybe a couple of weeks instead of in that short time frame they did it in. This is one where, and I have yeah, so they had the same thing. Someone was poking them via email saying, "Hey, you've got cyber problems. You should make me a maintainer so that we can blah, blah." Is the whole same like the same kind of style of attack, which means we're going to start seeing this style of cookie cutter attack against projects and repos and things like that out there. But what made me like really take a step back is when you think about okay, like most likely nobody knew that the OpenJS Foundation is responsible for a lot of the stuff associated with Electron, jQuery, Node.js, and Webpack. I don't know what Appium is. I should know what Appium is, but I don't know what Appium is. But I know what the other four are. They're huge. The deployment of all those is huge. People use them on the regular basis. And imagine if this was a low and slow attack and it actually worked and it got into all these projects out there. Thankfully, it didn't. It's one of those things where it actually didn't get out there. So I wanted to ask you for like, or you three, because I'm the fourth one here. What and everyone, please feel free to answer too in the chat. Like, is this now going to be something that we're going to see on a more regular basis? Is this going to be a now regular attack method that we're going to see low and slow, like fast and loose, like this one did? Like, do we now have to do something to do more education about open source maintainers than it's already been done?
Define more regular.
Right.
Like, I think right. So let's take a step back. These supply chain type attacks we've seen for years and years and years. I think the biggest, most obvious example is the ME-Doc stuff with WannaCry.
Yep.
And then you had the C cleaner, right? That was a fun one. We've had these, right? We know that they've happened. And if you go all the way back to Ken Thompson's lecture, Reflections on Trusting Trust, right? It's like, why do we trust the C compiler? Why do we trust GCC? Why don't we manually inspect to make sure that GCC didn't put a backdoor into our program every time we compile it? And it's like, well, because we trust GCC and it would be too much of a pain to inspect it every time, right? So I think that, is it a known attack vector now? And so will we see more people trying to take advantage of it? Potentially, right? There are some people who are just like, oh, I didn't even think about becoming a maintainer of an underfunded open source project, right? Like the OpenJS project got a little lucky that it's a big community full of active maintainers, right? If you start looking at, this is not advice to criminals, please.
We're not on Zoom, so be careful. Like Todd's here, but we're not on Zoom, so you
That's
gotta be
okay.
careful.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Right. But like if you were to target something that is less well-funded, less well-maintained, maybe it would be more successful, right? I think that is probably a factor in why the XZ stuff was so successful, is that it wasn't Electron, right? You might not see it in OpenSSL. Maybe you will.
Yeah.
Maybe not on purpose though. But you might see it in some lesser funded crypto library, right? Some less maintained crypto library. No shade on the OpenSSL people; they're actually awesome. It's just easy because they're the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
They're the Microsoft of crypto libraries.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
I just feel like it kind of just the supply chain thing, like that's this evolving conversation of like, do you really know what's in your network? And it really just tingles my paranoia brain in a very particular way of like, oh no, I don't really know what's in my network. But like that's where the conversation is evolving for me, is just like people are kind of thinking a little bit more about like, oh, supply chain isn't just like the boards in my server ended up in a strange place in Shenzhen. Like, it's not just that anymore. It's the open source software that my admin knows and loves is maintained by somebody, who knows who they are. We just know they're like little GitHub name.
So I'm going to drop a link to there's no time to put this in the slides. I need to get the right link to it. I'll drop a link later. In archive today, there's a full breakdown analysis, really well done of the XZ attack as well too. So it's something, if you folks want to know at a more academic level and a more detailed level, it's like, so more words, no pictures. Definitely hit that up because it's worth reading to see exactly what they've learned so far. And I think people will still be learning more of it, but it was great that there was just such a quick turnaround time for all those. I want to toss it out to so apart from some of the cool open source stuff that Erick already shared, I wanted to toss this library, this Malpedia, this encyclopedia of threat actors, malware families that are used by them, and also like use of it, like so basically news stories. They take all the MITRE attack information that regularly updated, they cross-reference it with all the stuff they have, and then there's an entire private thing behind it. Just so if you're part of a trusted community, you can get access to the actual malware samples as well too. So I just have the couple. I just have screens up here. They talking about the library itself, the families, and the actual actors. I also threw together a really quick resource that lets you explore the actual threat actors and the malware families that they use, and it links you right to the stuff inside Malpedia. After talking about software vulnerabilities all for the good more portion of this today, I figured as we did, as I figured we were going to do. I didn't want to give you software to go download and run today. I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So shameless self-promotion. And we're going to start. So is there still time to join the Thrunting workshop tomorrow?
Not if you call it Thrunting, there is not.
Okay.
So tomorrow, if you are in Philadelphia, from so lunch starts at 12 and then we go until 4:30 and there's a happy hour afterwards. We're putting on a threat hunting workshop. So several folks from my team will be there. Glenn is also there. That's why he's not here today. And so we're going to kind of go through some basics of just sort of census and gray noise, sort of how to search these things. So you don't have to just rely on Census GPT to write your queries. And then we'll get into some back and forth investigation. Like census and gray noise are kind of the opposite sides of the same coin. We have kind of conflicting views, or not conflicting, but sort of opposite views. And so I think it should be a great time. Like, go check it out if you're local to Philadelphia. The team would love to see you and talk to you and learn about how you're using census and gray noise.
Is it
Just
really a
don't call it
happy
Thrunting.
hour is it really a happy hour if Glenn's there though?
I knew you were going to say yes. It is still happy hour.
Okay.
It's sad hour for me because I won't be there, but it's happy hour for everyone else.
Okay. All right. Fair. You have a blog out about the D-Link NAS situation. What does that cover?
Yes. So this is something we touched on the pod last week, but essentially that whole 92,000 D-Link network attached storage devices that were allegedly vulnerable to this particular, there are 2 CVEs, I think. We did a little digging and it turns out that there's actually not 92,000 of them on the internet. It's more like 5,500. And so we actually wrote down all of our findings. We even went as far as like reaching back out to like reporters who'd reached out to us initially for like numbers, because we were like, hey, we want to give you like the accurate measures that we have. And we actually didn't hear back from anybody. So no one was very excited about kind of correcting that big number and like getting a more realistic picture of what's actually out there. But read the investigation of kind of how we've stepped through and just sort of investigated and figured out that there are far fewer of them out there.
2 outlets did not use the 92,000 number though, and I don't rember what they are off the top of my head. But
I remember that. I was very pleased. It was like,
whoever you are, like you did that deity's work there. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And
I love this story, by the way. Just like, yeah, they said it was this much, but then we like really got deep on it, and it's actually this much.
Yeah.
Like
we scienced it, and like we scienced it, and like it's not there.
I mean, we just looked at a screenshot. We just read a screenshot more carefully, and then we're like, wait a minute, we need to dig a little more.
So you say that, but you and Kimber both were like, this doesn't feel right. You were both like that last episode. This is it's like the Spidey sense was off on the thing. So. Yeah. Good on you with Spidey. Maybe it was plant sense actually. Yeah, it could be. Speaking of sense, that was totally not intended, but it worked out really well. I'm assuming you wrote this one, Emily.
Why would you say that?
Well, because
I did, but why did you say that?
Well, it was extremely thorough, extremely detailed, and it sounded like it was like you treated it as a detective story, so like it kind of had that whole feel to it. So yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I really had no idea it was gonna be that kind of read, but yes. So last week, the Sisense data breach, that whole thing got rolling around April 10th or 11th. That's when the news started coming out. CISA published an advisory just about the fact that they had been breached, which was like, wait a minute, this seems like a big deal. And I really closely followed all the Move It stuff last year. So like our whole team was kind of involved in tracking that. And I was like, oh, this feels a little bit like Move It. We should look at this. So in this case, we just did like a quick subdomain enumeration for Sisense instances that appear to be cloud hosted. We went and like got the ones that gave us 200 back and decided to like categorize them. Like we attributed them and categorized them into industries so we could kind of better understand like who's potentially affected here. But the thing is like, this is not complete, right? Like this is not comprehensive. This isn't representative of the Sisense customer population. It's just sort of what we were able to see and verify. But I will say, like, I was a little surprised at some of the industries that popped up as being Sisense customers. So like I think this is going to be really interesting, and I'm very curious. I've only seen one disclosure so far from a company that's like been affected by it. So I'm curious to see when those start get rolling out.
And you just took all your scam results and just shoved them up to ChatGPT, and it spat out all the industries and everything for you
That's
automatically.
exactly what I did. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
Wow.
thought. Yeah.
We live in the future.
I didn't really do that, in case anyone thinks
Yeah,
I was
yeah, it did
serious.
that. There was a lot of human labor involved in what they did. That's why I wanted to point that out. A lot of human labor. We have Net Noise Con coming up Friday. Sam, I don't know, he must have been drinking or something, because he actually asked me to speak at the thing, so I'll be speaking at the thing. So you get to hear me again if you join that thing. Go to this thing; it's going to be great. The lineup is awesome. The coordination around this internally has been fantastic, and look at the graphic, people. Just look at the graphic.
Beautiful.
It's
I'm going
just
to be
gorgeous.
talking about vintage internet noise.
Oh, you're gonna do that at this one? Oh my!
Yeah.
Everybody, you got to attend this. It's just gonna be. Oh, it's gonna be so cool.
I actually gave the talk at B-Side Salt Lake City on Friday, like last Friday.
I meant to ask how that went. How'd that go?
It was a lot of fun.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I'm really looking forward to this. And also like the lineup that Sam got,
He's like, I don't know why he asked me with this lineup. That's why I was saying that. Like, dude, you could have just whatever, but that's great. Like, yeah, he got a lot of Sam, lots of contacts, doing a great job. I cannot wait for this. And this is just gonna get bigger and bigger over the years.
But Bob, with a lineup like that, what could it cost?
It's free.
Oh, where do I have to travel?
You don't have to travel. It's online.
Wow, that's so great. So I can go to the link in the slide
Yeah.
and sign up?
Or our site too. Yeah. Yeah.
Or in
Wow,
the comments.
that's amazing. I can't wait to do it.
There you go.
Sam has made it so easy to
Yeah.
learn things on a Friday. It's on
Yeah.
Friday.
It's on a Friday. Just goof off on Friday and like learn some stuff at Gray Noise. It's good. We have a little blog out about the Palo Alto PanOS thing. Go to it. And someone said something about ChatGPT and AI with regard to phones. I've seen nothing about that. I'm going to assume none of us have seen anything about using ChatGPT for this particular CV.
No, but with this one in particular, there was so much GitHub garbage. There was so much garbage posted that it ultimately led to like crypto scam download things. So there was a lot of just pre-generated junk that wasn't really, people thought they were seeing it exploited on their perimeter, but really they were just seeing the junk. So
lots of junk. So much junk being thrown at everything right now. I think, Kimber, one thing we got to remember to do it, but like I'd love to track the build up and tear down of all the garbage POCs for things in the future, just to see, because I think that would be a cool research thing.
We've done a couple of blogs on that kind of stuff before, and it is really good. Yeah, this would be a good one for that.
So I don't know. Glenn's not here, so I have to ask the team, since he's not here, like what's he been threatening them with? He has to be using some terrible thing with them, because I have to go to 2 screens to show you the 36 tags that the team cranked out between last Tuesday and today. And I know half of them listen to this, so thank you for your work. I know it's all because of partially SIF, but then also your hard work at finding the POCs, and then also testing things out and creating it. So you do all the things to make this work the way it does. So I love you guys. You know that. And this is amazing.
I don't think he's threatening them. I think he's motivating them because he's an excellent manager.
I mean, I do hope that's it. But
whatever he's doing, it's working, because this is really awesome.
And so I won't ruin the surprise, but we probably have a blog post coming out tomorrow on the Labs blog for a particular milestone that the tag's about to hit, and it's going to be kind of a kitschy sort of CTF kind of blog post. You'll see what I mean by that tomorrow. So check out the www.labs.greynoise.io blog, Grimoire blog for that tomorrow. We'll definitely post about that on the internets. I did want to point out that on the 12th, this is one of the diagnostic charts that I look at every day. But on the 12th, we had almost 700 active tags, literally the most numbers of active tags in Gray Noise Day history since Gray Noise was a thing. And this is just bonkers. This is a lot of tags. And we have not had a second to go and poke at why.
So drop your speculations in the chat.
Yeah, seriously, why do you think we saw so many tags?
Look, my leading theory, somebody qualis scanned the internet. That's just what it is. That's not actually what it is, but
it could indeed be that though.
You never know.
I'm gonna blow past the Kev slide because I didn't update it. Has Todd? Do you have anything to add to Kev today, or is it just these three? Since you're probably still here, he's not still here. I don't think there's anything. But so there's three things.
Good to see all the things in the news made it to the Kev.
Yeah, I mean the Palo thing was just scary though. Like reading, like I really do hate it when it's like, yeah, we've confirmed companies got hurt with the 0 day. I really, really hate reading that. And this is one of those cases where it actually happened again too. And the blue teams have it hard enough without having to deal with 0 days.
I will say a few of the IP addresses from the Palo Alto IOCs did end up in gray noise, which is very interesting to me.
And somewhat unusual too, because usually we don't get like those C2 servers in gray noise. Yeah.
Like maybe we'll get one and it's a very like generic service. Go to the Palo Alto, grab the IP IOCs, search them in gray noise, become very curious, because that was my morning.
So Todd, I wasn't asking for pending. I was asking, did you do a Kev release while we were talking? That's all I wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know. I don't want secrets. Like we don't need secrets. It's already bad enough. Phew. So
I can't believe you're doxing Meat Popsicle.
I know. I thought about that too.
But he used his face in Avatar. I'm not doxing anybody.
I would never know who that man is.
Are you sure that's his face?
Yeah.
Could be a deep fake.
Could be. How do we know that's the real Todd?
Oh my gosh, it may not. I didn't even think about. Well, actually, what if he used, because like he says things a certain way that's Todd way, but what if he trained the GPT to do that, and this could always just a compromise? Yeah,
We need to go ask him about turtles.
Yeah. Oh, and Lovecraft.
When we get heckled. It's just good. Well, when Bob gets heckled, really.
Yeah, I actually do love it. This is great. This is awesome. So I'm going to go in reverse order. Kimber, thank you for making time. I know you got a lot of product stuff going on right now. Plus, it's early, so thank you for always carving time out for this. It's great. Yeah. Emily, same as well too. Like you have to forego running in the morning to do this thing, so I really appreciate that too. Eric, go ahead, Emily. Good.
I was just gonna say, no, I don't skip that. I still get it in.
Oh, so make you do it even earlier. So now I feel even worse. That's great.
Yeah, feel bad. You should feel bad.
I should. I do. It's good. Eric, it was so awesome seeing you again, talking to you again. And your insights were just amazing and impeccable as usual.
Thank you so much, Bob. Yeah, it was a pleasure. I'm only disappointed that I can't do this every week. This is awesome.
I mean, we could try to I could have a word with NVIDIA. Yeah. Anyway, so as we're not doing the ending questions anymore, but as I said last time around, I do ask Perplexity to generate some closing statements that I can do to close out the podcast. I ask it right before I ask it to give me 5 choices. All 5 are horrible. So I'm gonna pick, I think, what might be like the most horrible one of all, which is and with that, we've reached the end of today's Stormwatch. Remember, in the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity, staying informed is your best defense. Until next time, keep your data safe and your network secure. Farewell.
Oof.
Yeah, terrible. But anyway, everybody, thanks. Yeah, Secure Girl. Hey, wait a minute. Secure Girl is my new favorite listener. Awesome. Thank you, Secure Girl. Again, thank you for all being here, and we will catch everybody next week on the next Stormwatch. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.